Shri Srimad A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai. Nam Acharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda. Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopinath Sham Kund Radha Kundi Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Navadvip Dham Ki Jai. Jagannath Puri Ki Jai. Gangamai Ki Jai. Jamunamai Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande. Hari Hari Bol.
Shall we begin, Maharaj?
Everybody have a decent place to sit. The harmonium is using up someone's sitting place.
Sure.
Yes.
Almost.
Do our best.
Krishna, Krishna. Reading from the book Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Chapter 65. Lord Balaram visits Vrindavan. Lord Balaram became very anxious to see his father and mother in Vrindavan. Therefore, with great enthusiasm, he started on a chariot for Vrindavan. The inhabitants of Vrindavan had been anxious to see Krishna and Balaram for a very long time. When Lord Balaram returned to Vrindavan, all the cowhead boys and the Gopis had grown up, but still, on his arrival, they all embraced him and Balaram embraced them in reciprocation. After this, he came before Maharaj Nanda and Yashoda and offered his respectful obeisances. In response, Mother Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj offered their blessings unto him. They addressed him as Jagadishwara, or the Lord of the universe who maintains everyone. The reason for this was that Krishna and Balaram maintained all living entities. And yet Nanda and Yashoda were put into such difficulties on account of their absence. Feeling like this, they embraced Balaram and, seating him on their laps, began their perpetual crying, wetting Balaram with their tears. Lord Balaram then offered his respectful obeisances to the elderly cowherd men and accepted the obeisances of the younger cowherd men. Thus, according to their different ages and relationships, Lord Balaram exchanged feelings of friendship with them. He shook hands with those who were his equals in age and friendship, and with loud laughing embraced each one of them. After being received by the cowherd men and boys, the Gopis and King Nanda and Yashoda, Lord Balaram sat down, feeling satisfied, and they all surrounded him. First, Lord Balaram inquired from them about their welfare, and then, since they had not seen him for such a long time, they began to ask him different questions. The inhabitants of Vrindavan had sacrificed everything for Krishna, simply being captivated by the lotus eyes of the Lord. Because of their great desire to love Krishna, they never desired anything like elevation to the heavenly planets or merging into the effulgence of Brahman to become one with the absolute truth. They were not even interested in enjoying a life of opulence, but were satisfied in living a simple life in the village as cowherds. They were always absorbed in thoughts of Krishna and did not desire any personal benefits, and they were all so much in love with him that in his absence their voices faltered when they began to inquire from Balaramji. First, Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda Mai inquired, "My dear Balarama, are our friends like Vasudeva and others in the family doing well? Now you and Krishna are grown up married men with children. In the happiness of family life, do you sometimes remember your poor father and mother, Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda Devi? It is very good news that the most sinful king Kamsa has been killed by you, and that our friends like Vasudeva and others who had been harassed have now been relieved. It is also very good news that you and Krishna defeated Jarasandha and Kalayavana, who is now dead, and that you are now living in a fortified residence in Dwaraka." When the Gopis arrived, Lord Balaram glanced over them with loving eyes. Being overjoyed, the Gopis, who had so long been mortified on account of Krishna's and Balaram's absence, began to ask about the welfare of the two brothers. They specifically asked Balaram whether Krishna was enjoying his life surrounded by the enlightened women of Dwarakapuri. Does he sometimes remember his father Nanda and his mother Yashoda and the other friends with whom he so intimately behaved while in Vrindavan? Does Krishna have any plans to come here to see his mother Yashoda? And does he remember us Gopis who are now pitiably bereft of his company? Krishna may have forgotten us in the midst of the cultured women of Dwaraka, but as far as we are concerned, we still remember him by collecting flowers and sewing them into garlands. When he does not come, however, we simply pass our time by crying. If only he would come here and accept these garlands we have made. Dear Lord Balaram, descendant of Dasarha, you know that we would give up everything for Krishna's friendship. Even in great distress, one cannot give up the connection of family members. But although it might be impossible for others, we gave up our fathers, mothers, sisters, and relatives. But then Krishna, without caring a pinch for our renunciation, all of a sudden renounced us and went away. He broke off our intimate relationship without serious consideration and left for a foreign country. But he was so clever and cunning that he manufactured very nice words. He said, "My dear Gopis, please do not worry. The service you have rendered me is impossible for me to repay. After all, we are women, so how could we disbelieve him? Now we can understand that his sweet words were simply for cheating us." Protesting Krishna's absence from Vrindavan, another Gopi said, "My dear Balaramji, we are of course village girls, so Krishna could cheat us in that way. But what about the women of Dwaraka? Don't think they are as foolish as we are. We village women might be misled by Krishna, but the women in the city of Dwaraka are very clever and intelligent. Therefore, I would be surprised if such city women could be misled by Krishna and could believe his words." Then another Gopi began to speak. "My dear friend," she said, Krishna is very clever in using words. No one can compete with him in that art. He can manufacture such colorful words and talk so sweetly that the heart of any woman would be misled. Besides that, he has perfected the art of smiling very attractively, and by seeing his smiling smile, women become mad after him and give themselves to him without hesitation. Another Gopi, after hearing this, said, "My dear friends, what is the use of talking about Krishna? If you are at all interested in passing time by talking, let us talk on some subject other than him. If cruel Krishna can pass his time without us, why can't we pass our time without Krishna? Of course, Krishna is passing his days without us very happily, but we cannot pass our days happily without him." When the gopis were talking in this way, their feelings for Krishna became more and more intense, and they were experiencing Krishna's smiling, Krishna's words of love, Krishna's attractive features, Krishna's characteristics, and Krishna's embraces. By the force of their ecstatic feelings, it appeared to them that Krishna was personally present and dancing before them. Because of their sweet remembrance of Krishna, they could not check their tears, and they began to cry without consideration. Lord Balaram, of course, could understand the ecstatic feelings of the gopis, and therefore he wanted to pacify them. He was expert in presenting an appeal, and thus, treating the gopis very respectfully, he began to narrate the stories of Krishna so tactfully that the gopis became satisfied. To keep the gopis in Vrindavan satisfied, Lord Balaram stayed there continuously for 2 months, namely the months of Chaitra, March, April, and Vaishakha, April, May. For those 2 months, he kept himself among the gopis and he passed every night with them in the forest of Vrindavan to satisfy their desire for conjugal love. Thus, Balaram also enjoyed the rasa dance with the gopis during those 2 months. Since the season was springtime, the breeze on the bank of Yamuna was blowing very mildly, carrying the aroma of different flowers, especially the flower known as Kaumudi. Moonlight filled the sky and spread everywhere, and thus the banks of the Yamuna appeared very bright and pleasing, and Lord Balaram enjoyed the company of the gopis there. The demigod known as Varuna sent his daughter Varuni in the form of liquid honey oozing from the hollows of the trees. Because of this honey, the whole forest became aromatic, and the sweet aroma of the liquid honey, Varuni, captivated Balaramji. Balaramji and all the gopis became very much attracted by the taste of Varuni, and all of them drank it together. While drinking this natural beverage, all the gopis chanted the glories of Lord Balaram, and Lord Balaram felt very happy, as if he had become intoxicated by drinking that Varuni beverage. His eyes rolled in a pleasing attitude. He was decorated with long garlands of forest flowers, and the whole situation appeared to be a great function of happiness because of this transcendental bliss. Lord Balaram smiled beautifully, and the drops of perspiration decorating his face appeared like soothing morning dew. While Balaram was in that happy mood, he desired to enjoy the company of the gopis in the water of the Yamuna. Therefore, he called the Yamuna to come nearby. But the Yamuna neglected the order of Balaramji, considering him intoxicated. Lord Balaram became very much displeased at the Yamuna's neglecting his order. He immediately wanted to scratch the land near the river with his plowshare. Lord Balaram has two weapons, a plow and a club, from which he takes service when they are required. This time he wanted to bring the Yamuna by force, and he took the help of his plow. He wanted to punish the Yamuna because she did not come in obedience to his order. He addressed the Yamuna, "You wretched river, you did not care for my order. Now I shall teach you a lesson. You did not come to me voluntarily. Now, with the help of my plough, I shall force you to come. I shall divide you into hundreds of scattered streams. When the Yamuna was threatened like this, she became greatly afraid of the power of Balaram and immediately came in person, falling at his lotus feet and praying thus: My dear Balarama, you are the most powerful personality and you are pleasing to everyone. Unfortunately, I forgot your glorious exalted position, but now I have come to my senses and I remember that you hold all the planetary systems on your head merely by your partial expansion, Sesha. You are the sustainer of the whole universe. My dear Supreme Personality of Godhead, you are full with six opulences. Because I forgot your omnipotence, I have mistakenly disobeyed your order, and thus I have become a great offender. But, my dear Lord, please know that I am a soul surrendered unto you, who are very affectionate to your devotees. Therefore, please excuse my impudence and mistakes, and by your causeless mercy, may you now release me. Upon displaying this submissive attitude, the Yamuna was forgiven, and when she came back nearby, Lord Balaram enjoyed the pleasure of swimming in her waters along with the Gopis in the same way that an elephant enjoys himself along with his many she elephants. After a long time, when Lord Balaram had enjoyed to his full satisfaction, he came out of the water, and immediately a goddess of fortune offered him a nice blue garment and a valuable necklace made of gold. After bathing in the Yamuna, Lord Balaram, dressed in blue garments and decorated with golden ornaments, looked very attractive to everyone. Lord Balaram's complexion is white, and when he was properly dressed, he looked exactly like the white elephant of King Indra in the heavenly planets. The river Yamuna still has many small branches due to being scratched by the plowshare of Lord Balaram. And all these branches of river Yamuna still glorify the omnipotence of Lord Balaram. Lord Balaram and the Gopis enjoyed transcendental pastimes together every night for 2 months, and the time passed so quickly that all those nights appeared to be only one night. In the presence of Lord Balaram, all the Gopis and other inhabitants of Vrindavan became as cheerful as they had been before in the presence of both brothers, Lord Krishna and Lord Balaram. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of 65th chapter of Krishna, Lord Balaram visits Vrindavan. Hare Krishna.
Om Ajnana Timirandhasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshun Meditam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Sthapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Tadati Shapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Jatapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raganatan Vitam Stam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakhan Vitanscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kamshana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindho Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar, Shiva Shadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Mhm. Yeah. So here, Lord Balaram is keen to visit Vrindavan and see his father and mother, and starts for Vrindavan. The acharyas comment that Krishna didn't come because the Yadus kept him back. They were afraid that if Krishna goes to Vrindavan, he won't come back again. But somehow they allowed Lord Balaram to go. So when he arrived, the Gopis had grown up, but they embraced him, and he came before Nanda Yashoda and offered obeisances. Nanda Maharaj offered blessings and expressed the feelings. All the Brajvasis expressed their feelings of separation from Krishna in different ways. Does Krishna still remember us? Does he sometimes think of us? Does he think at least of his father and mother? We sacrificed everything for him. Does he sometimes remember us? So yes. So first, Lord Balaram spoke with Nanda Yashoda and then with the Gopis. Does he have any plans to come back and see Nanda Yashoda? Does he remember us? Mm-hmm. We still remember him. We collect flowers and weave them into garlands, but then he doesn't come to accept them. So in this way, we gave up our family members, we gave up everything for Krishna. We broke off, but he just broke the relationship and went away. So in this way, they're protesting Krishna's absence from Vrindavan. We're simple village girls. Krishna could cheat us. What can we do? So they were, he may be happily passing his days forgetting us, but we can't forget him. In this way, their feelings became, as Prabhupada said, more and more intense. They were remembering Krishna's smiling, his loving words, his attractive features. And in this way, Prabhupada said it appeared, or Krishna, Shukadeva says, it appeared that Krishna was personally present and dancing before them. It appeared to them. So Balaram wanted to pacify them, and so he began narrating stories of Krishna in such a way that the Gopis became satisfied. And Balaram agreed to stay for 2 months, Chaitra and Vaishakha, March, April, May, and kept himself with the Gopis, and every night he danced with the Gopis. The acharyas comment that these were not the same Gopis with whom Krishna had performed the rasa dance. Those gopis were younger. These were, or rather, these gopis were younger, so they were not grown, not old enough to participate at the time. Or they explained that Balaram has his own set of gopis. Not that he was dancing with the same gopis that Krishna was dancing with. So Balaram was in this way with the Brajbasis, and he was dancing with the gopis on the banks of the Jamuna in the pleasing moonlight. And the Varuna sent his daughter Varuni in the form of liquid honey. The forest became aromatic, and Balaram became captivated by and attracted by the taste of the Varuni. And he and the gopis were drinking this beverage, and Balaram became a little high. This is described in several places, that Balaram sometimes becomes a little intoxicated on this. And he appeared very pleasing. So now Balaram, in a very happy mood, wanted to enjoy with the gopis in the water of the Jamuna, so he summoned the Jamuna. You, please come nearby. But the river said, no, you're intoxicated, I'm not coming. So Lord Balaram became displeased, and with his plow, he began scratching the ground in such a way as to divide up the Jamuna into various streams. That threat was there. You didn't come to me voluntarily, so now with my plow I'll divide you into hundreds of streams. So then Jamuna became fearful, knowing of Balaram's power, and asked forgiveness. I forgot your opulences, I forgot your omnipotence, I've mistakenly disobeyed your order, I've offended you, so please excuse me. And of course she was forgiven, and then came nearby, and Balaram enjoyed swimming in her waters with the gopis, the way an elephant enjoys in the water with many she-elephants. And a goddess of fortune came and offered a nice blue garment and a valuable necklace to Lord Balaram, and he looked very beautiful. Lord Balaram and the gopis enjoyed in this way for 2 months, which passed so quickly it seemed only like one night. And the inhabitants of Vrindavan became as cheerful as in the presence of both brothers, Lord Balaram and Lord Krishna. And in that way the chapter ends. Any comments or questions? I think we had some questions from yesterday's chapter, and I don't know if those questions are here. Also, just a technical thing, we've been asked about people who are hearing the live stream and they'd like to ask questions. So we can do that. They can post their questions, but then somebody has to monitor the page.
No live stream.
We don't have live stream.
I'm just recording.
We're just recording. Okay, well that makes things simple. If you're hearing this online, we apologize, we have no live stream. You can email your questions. Our apologies for that. We're still we're doing good. We're not sitting under trees discussing only among ourselves. But we don't have, can't accommodate remote questions. If you have mystic powers, send your questions directly. Okay. Other comment or question here? Yeah. Sure.
From yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Yesterday we were speaking about pious and impious activities and results.
Mm-hmm.
So I was reading the book of Mahatma Prabhu, and he was describing a pastime where one devotee during Prabhupada's time built a tree house and went in the tree house and chanted 64 rounds every day and almost didn't come out to associate. And they asked Prabhupada's opinion, and he didn't say much. And then 1 week later, they asked again because they were getting frustrated that they couldn't contact him properly. And then the Prabhupada said, it's just sense gratification. He said that. So I was wondering that this devotee probably had the intention to do devotional service, to really go for it, but still, according to Prabhupada, he was doing sense gratification. So how can we not fall into the trap that even during devotional service we are, with good intentions, doing sense gratification?
This devotee wanted to go for it, and so he built a tree house someplace and wanted to chant 64 rounds, and Prabhupada said it's just sense gratification. So what do we think of that? Prabhupada, we should go for it, but the way we should go for it is the way authorized by the spiritual master. There's a lot of people these days who want to go for it. And how are we going to go for it? We're going to go down to Loy Bazaar and buy all the juiciest books. Or we're going to go to Radhakund and we're going to find the secret of our eternal identity from the enlightened Babajis there. Or we're going to sit among ourselves and cherry pick the verses that have to do with Krishna and the Gopis. Or fill in the blanks, we have some other way to go for it. But Prabhupada told us how to go for it. You follow the orders of the spiritual master, take up his mission, read his books, distribute his books, follow the regular program. Why is it there? Is it there only just for people who don't really want to go for it? This is the program. Not that this is just for the sort of the poor neophytes who. It's like we're here sitting reading Krishna books, so we're all neophyte devotees, or at least I'm a neophyte devotee, and some others may be neophytes. But if they're exalted devotees, they can also derive pleasure from hearing the same Krishna book. Prabhupada was sitting in his, not exactly last days, but in last months, he was sitting in Krishna Balaram temple in the evenings, listening to the kirtan and hearing his disciples give class. He wrote to the temple president in New York that I'm sitting here and listening to the class and enjoying. And similarly, you should also attend the classes. He said, don't try to be a greater Paramhansa than your Guru Maharaj. So this is our method. What was I just thinking of? Somebody, I just saw it somewhere, somebody sent it to me or I read it somewhere, that someone had asked Prabhupada, how do we develop love for you? And the answer was, if I remember, strictly follow the 4 regulative principles and chant 16 rounds a day. It's not some esoteric method. It's just do what you agreed to do. Take your prescription. Follow. And in due time, it'll be there. But when we want to go for it, find the shortcut, find the express train, and overstep the instructions of the spiritual master, we wind up going more slowly or going in the opposite direction. So Rupa Goswami says enthusiasm, but patience also. and following in the association of devotees. Is that right? And so, the proof was there. That the person sets himself up in a treehouse. Probably, I don't know if it's the same incident, but there was someone in Mayapur. He came to Mayapur and went off in the fields and, secluded himself to chant 64 rounds. And then after a few days, he was gone. So better to follow.
But basically, he did chant and he did follow the principles.
For some time. I can run at a very fast pace for 3 or 4 minutes. I can't sustain it. When I learned typing, I did learn something good in school. I learned typing. That proved useful. I had terrible handwriting, so it was necessary. And the way we were taught, on old typewriters where you press the keys by about this far to get the letters there. Remember? Anyway, there were these drills, FJ, DK, SLA, semi, and all of that. And the teacher emphasized, try for accuracy. And speed will come automatically. If you try for accuracy, speed will come automatically. If you try for speed, you won't get speed and you lose accuracy. So try for accuracy and the speed will come. So if we follow the directions of the spiritual master, if we follow the rules and regulations, and not just don't do this, don't do that, but if we read the books and relish discussions among devotees, attend the classes, and hear with attention, and distribute books, or perform whatever our prescribed duty is, and try to do it with attention and care, Krishna will help us and we'll come to that advanced stage. But if we try to, rush and throw everything else aside and dive into the highest pools of nectar, that's not what we're recommended to do. Yes.
Can I ask one small thing? Where's the line between being patient and letting the process do its work, and realizing maybe it's not working, I have to change something myself, I have to endeavor, make it different?
We should always endeavor. Why wait for something not to work? We should always try to improve our service, increase our service, do our service more diligently or with greater devotion. It's not that we should just let it become a routine business that we mindlessly carry out. And if you can do more service, it's wonderful. We should always be trying to do more. But we should be careful not to take the path. Prabhupada's indicated so many times what we shouldn't do. How we shouldn't try to just jump over into the higher realms of prema bhakti without going through shraddha and sadhu sangha and art of nivritti, step by step, step by step. He's told us. So there's plenty of scope for us to be, like devotees who are distributing books. They distribute books and then they distribute more books and then they break their own record and then they break it again. And then they figure out a new way to distribute books. Okay, we can distribute stacks of books, we can distribute sets of books, we can do this, we can do that. So there's plenty of room for enthusiasm, for creativity even. But when we want to, what's the word, enter into the higher realms of devotional, of intimate devotional service, we should be very careful, because we've been warned so many times. These things, what's the word? Prabhupada said, will become apparent to you as in the advanced stage, as Krishna desires. And so it doesn't mean we don't do anything, but read the books, follow, see what in Nectar Devotion we're recommended to do. Anukulyena, anukulyasya sankalpa. See, she gets some prasad. Anukulyasya sankalpa. See that whatever is favorable for bhakti, let us do that. And whatever is unfavorable, let's cut that out. Okay? Yes?
Hare Krishna. Is this on or?
No, it's not. There's a switch there.
Hare Krishna. Okay, no.
Yes.
So how come the Lord Balarama is allowed to take intoxications and enjoy with the girls? Well, we're not.
How come
meant
he's
to take
allowed? Who's going to stop him? What is that? Matta paraturam nanya kinchidasti. No one is higher than Krishna Balaram, so who can stop them? Swarat, they're independent. They can do as they like. They're not subject to the rules and regulations. Lord Balaram, it says right here, he's the supreme authority. Supreme authorities can do as they like.
What is about the third chapter of Bhagavad Gita where Krishna says, whatever action great men perform, common will follow?
Yeah, whatever action, but then still we have to see, because there are some actions great men perform that we're not supposed to imitate. And that's also stated in Bhagavatam, that just like Lord Shiva, he's a great soul. And so he's always chanting the holy name of the Lord. He's doing so many wonderful things. But we can't imitate him by drinking the ocean of poison or by smoking ganja. We shouldn't imitate, but we should follow the instructions of the great souls. They generally set the example, but sometimes they do things according to their position that we can't do. The sun drinks urine. Shall we also drink urine? The sun is able to sterilize and purify the urine. We're not. So we can't imitate, we have to follow. And that's the mistake of the Sahajas. They want to imitate. And so they just become more degraded than they already are. We have to follow. When we were children, let's put that differently, when I was a kid, my parents would say, now you have to go to bed. It's 8 o'clock or whatever it is, and you have to go to bed. And then they would stay up and watch television for another 2 hours. And of course, this wasn't fair. But they're the adults. Yes, is that okay?
Yeah.
Yes, Gratification. All right. Yes.
Audible?
You're good.
So we read that Balaram is performing a rasa dance. Does that mean that there's Balaram Prema?
Yeah,
What is the difference?
no difference.
No difference.
Just someone loves the black one, someone loves the white one.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Okay, I'll come to you.
Maharaj, how do we learn to submissively follow? How do we learn to submissively follow and follow sincerely? And because sometimes...
How do we learn to follow submissively? Well, we follow those who are following submissively. That's how we learn. The children learn by following their parents. We learn by following those. How do you learn to be a good cook? You follow the good cooks. So we learn to follow submissively. We see the examples of our senior godbrothers or godsisters or other devotees who are serving nicely, and we think, let me serve like that. Or we see the example of our spiritual master, how he's serving. We think, let me serve like that. Okay? Yes? Okay, comes to you, Kartikeya.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, so, is it on?
Yes.
Okay. Is this the first time that the camp split up from Balaram's Gopis and Krishna's Gopis? Because initially they're saying, oh, Krishna, we miss Krishna ever since he left. They're not saying, oh, Balaram, we missed you.
Yeah. Yeah, they're expressing their separation from Krishna. But then somehow Balaram is dancing with a specific group. I don't know if the acharyas have commented on that. You might take a look. You might find it easier here. Oh, hold on. Anyway, you swipe it and you'll find the other app. There's another app. That's it. And there's a table of contents too, if you just press in the middle, yeah. If you go to the beginning, you'll see that, and then hit the X, yeah. So we'll see if the acharyas say something more about that. I would expect that they would, because it's an intriguing question in this chapter. Yes.
Maharaj, I have a question from today's class. In every story, there should be a happy end. In this, I don't see, because the gopis are always in the separation. They're always saying, missing him, missing him. Is there a reference?
Happy end means, it's not happy, our idea of a happy end is like something from a Walt Disney film. Everybody's smiling in the end. But the feelings of Krishna and the gopis are beyond mere happiness. At the end of the 10th canto, Sukadeva Goswami tells of the feelings of the queens expressing separation from Krishna. You might remember that chapter. There's speaking to the osprey. They're speaking to the moon. They're speaking to the waves of the river. Are you feeling separation from Krishna like us? Is that why you're crying? Is that why the moon? You're becoming thin. Is that you're feeling separation? So the Acharya's comment that Sukadeva has ended with this incident, it's out of sequence a little bit, but they've ended with this incident, Madhurena Samarpayat, according to the principle that one should end with something sweet. So it's not counted as bitter. There's a sweetness, a incomparable sweetness in these feelings of separation. It's intense. Another asura. They're intense feelings, but the happiness of this material world can't compare to it. Okay.
So, in a sense, the gopis were having bliss out of separation.
Yes. More than when they're meeting Krishna.
Thank you very much, Maharaj. I have other questions from other previous classes, but if someone
Hold on just 1 second.
You have questions from today? Yeah, please.
I lost the place. And were you there right on topic? It's right on that topic. Okay. Jiva Goswami says, okay, the gopis mentioned here are those who were dedicated to Krishna. Now here, let's see where here is. Honored to have the personal audience. Oh gosh, that was 20 or something.
Text 9.
Text 9. Just touch things and everything can go away. Okay. Honored to have the personal audience of Lord Balaram, the young gopi smiled and asked him, is Krishna the darling of the city women living happily? Okay, now let's see what that brings us. Jiva Goswami says the gopis mentioned here are those dedicated to Krishna. They would meet secretly together at all times to hear news of him. They went to Balaram in a group to tell him to bring Krishna, as they had done when meeting Uddhava. Well, yeah, but that doesn't directly deal with the question of the gopis who were connected with Balaram directly, which I think was the question, right?
Yeah, but he was asking the gopis who were asking Balaramji were they Balaram's gopis or Krishna's gopis?
Yeah, these were Krishna's gopis who were asking Balaram about that. So there's two groups of, yeah, okay, so that clarifies that part. In the beginning, does Krishna remember us? So these are the gopis who were Krishna's gopis. Mm-hmm. And then there's the other gopis, they were happy to be dancing with Lord Balaram and so on.
Okay.
Does that open it up a little bit?
Yeah, well, what I understood was that the gopis that were now asking about Krishna were older. Please speak in mic. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, how about that?
So what I was understanding is that...
Is that mic on?
Yes.
Yes, it is. Okay.
It's on? Okay. What I'm understanding is that, okay, the gopis that Balaram is speaking to now are older, who couldn't participate before. And then now that they're older, now he's having a dance with them.
Yes.
But from what I'm hearing, that's a whole different set of...
They were younger, and therefore they couldn't participate in the rasa dance with Krishna. Now they're older.
Okay.
Or one way or another, because the acharyas look at things different ways. But these are Balaram's gopis, that's the conclusion.
Okay, got it.
But then these other gopis who were asking, what about Krishna? Does he remember us? They're Krishna's gopis.
Sure.
In the beginning of the chapter, those are Krishna's gopis. Then later, Balaram has his own set of gopis. Thank you. Okay. Yes?
Hare Krishna. My question is not related to today's class.
Not related to
today's class.
It
but
is.
it's related to Krishna and Balaram.
Okay.
Okay.
We'll see
So,
how close to legal this gets. Go ahead.
okay. So when we see the deities of Krishna and Balaram, we see the Balaram resting his arm on the Krishna. What is the significance of that? Sorry, my voice
Yeah,
is...
your voice is falling apart.
Yeah.
Did you hear it?
Yeah, the question is, we see here the deities where Balaram is keeping hand on Krishna. So what is the significance of that?
Krishna is the support of everything. Yes, there's a question in the back.
My question is to today's class.
Mhm.
In the material world, often relationships have bitter end. But after listening to the dealings of Krishna and Gopis after such sacrifices, what if Krishna leaves me also? That means I am attracted to Krishna because how he's protecting me. But what if he will also do the same thing? That he will leave me? Then
Did you
that
get
tree.
that?
I could understand a bit, but maybe if she repeats.
Yeah, it's a rule that we need to speak slowly and clearly because of hearing loss and less than great acoustics. So if you would repeat your question. With
In
that
the
in mind.
material world,
Yes.
often relationships have bitter end.
Relationships in the material world usually have bitter ends. Yes.
So after listening to Krishna and Gopis, how Krishna is dealing with the Gopis. So,
After we hear about Krishna's dealings with the Gopis,
so sometimes I am afraid, what if Krishna will also leave me?
you're afraid, what if Krishna leaves you? I think
Will I
first,
be able to love Krishna in the same way?
I don't think we have to, that's not among our immediate problems. What if Krishna leaves me? But the first thing is that we may leave Krishna. We've already left Krishna. And now we're so fortunate that we've come to Krishna consciousness. What if we leave again? That's a more immediate fear and more, what should we say, more of a fear that we could address and do something about. The Krishna may leave me, let the advanced, let the queens of Dwaraka deal with those kinds of fears. Krishna, we hear Krishna never left anyone. He never stepped foot outside of Vrindavan. So that's not the problem that we have. The problem is that we have this long-standing habit of leaving Krishna and turning toward something other than Krishna. Something other means Maya. That's the problem. So now I've come, what if I go back to that? So we should, of course, that question is asked in the first canto, and it says, well, even if he falls down, there's not, paraphrasing, the end of the world, because he'll come back eventually. But we shouldn't fall down. So we should be very afraid of, again, forgetting Krishna and turning toward illusion for happiness. So for that, we have to follow very strictly. In the Kathopanishad, it said that the path of spiritual realization is like the razor's edge. Prabhupada said, you're shaving and a little inattention and you draw blood. So we should be very careful to follow strictly the instructions given by the spiritual master, to keep ourselves in the association of solid devotees, to regularly hear, regularly chant, follow the routine activities for spiritual progress, so that we won't, again, forget Krishna and lose the opportunity that we've gotten after so many lifetimes. Is that okay?
Thank you, Maharaj.
Yes. Some more water. Hare Krishna, are you switched on?
Hare Krishna. Thank you for your class, Maharaj. Yesterday, I left thinking about your quoting Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami's CC, in which he said, in this material world, good and bad are mental speculations. And you also spoke of the pious enjoyer and the impious executor of activities being like dry and wet stool. And so I was thinking of how in this world, some people have sons to deliver the forefathers, and that's sort of a material activity. But then we get spiritual instructions from Bhaktivinoda Thakur saying that household life is the best for the age of Kali. And then we have
That household life is
the best in the age of Kali. And Prabhupada says that the advanced spiritualists recommend not to enter household life. So I'm wondering how to resolve this contradiction.
We hear from Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur that in Kali Yuga, household life is the most congenial ashram for spiritual progress in Krishna consciousness. And we hear from Srila Prabhupada that it's better to avoid household life. So how do we reconcile this? Well, let me think about that for a second. You can reconcile it. In one sense, it's irreconcilable. If one is better, then the other is not better. So how do you put the two together and say they're both better? You have to be better than I am at reconciliation. I reconcile it by just going with Prabhupada's conclusion. But I would reconcile it this way, that the real thing is to be Krishna conscious. Grihete banete tako hagoranga bale tako. Finally, it doesn't matter very much whether you're a householder or you're a brahmachari or sannyasi or grahastha. That's superficial. And what is that? Naham vipro narapatir chaitanya mahaprabhu. I'm not a householder. I'm not a brahmachari, grahastha, vanaprastha, sannyasi, brahmana, kshatriya, vaishya. I'm a servant of the servant of Krishna. So if we have that mentality, any ashram is good. It may be this ashram or that ashram, but that's the transcendental ashram. The Prabhupada said householder life means we want to enter the household of Krishna. So from that angle of vision, it doesn't matter very much. So that's perhaps the platform on which we could reconcile it and say, it's a small question. But that still does leave us with, well, Bhaktivinoda Thakur recommended one, Srila Prabhupada recommended the other. So the real thing is, if we're going to take to householder life, this I can say with confidence, if we're not Krishna conscious, householder life is a horror. Householder life is a horror without Krishna consciousness. Of course, any other life is also horrible without Krishna consciousness. So finally the conclusion is that we should be Krishna conscious. But the other thing is that we should follow strictly the rules and regulations of the ashram that we're in. If we're in the brahmachari ashram, we shouldn't be, hitting on the women. Is that term understood outside of America? It is, okay. We shouldn't be flirting. We shouldn't be, an old term is making time with. We shouldn't be seeking out the association of or making friendships with the members of the opposite sex. We should be strict. Brahmachari means there's no business with women. That's all. Business is with the spiritual master in Krishna, Shastra's service. So we should be strict. And in the householder ashram, we should be strict. We should follow the regulative principles for householder life. And we should be dedicated to the service of the Lord and the spiritual master. So we may choose this ashram or that ashram, but we should be strict about it. Some years ago, someone did a seminar called The Hopes and Horrors of Householder Life. For those interested, you can find it on the internet. Yes. The other thing to consider while we're at it, however, is that proper householder life lasts for 25 years. If we're thinking of householder life as sort of our eternal, what should we say, landing strip, our eternal destination, that's better. If we think of it, this is where I'm going to be situated for the rest of my life. Oh, bad. Householder life means 25 years. That's according to Varnashram, that's the idea. 25 years for student life. Then, if you wish, 25 years for family life. Then get out. Vanaprastha life. Then perhaps sannyas. So we don't want to be, Abhimanyu knew how to get into the Chakravyuha, but he didn't know how to get out. So we don't want to be like, and the result was he lost his life. So we don't want to be like Abhimanyu and know how to get into householder life, but not know how to get out. Therefore, the brahmachari training is so important. Those who've been trained as brahmacharis will find it easier to negotiate, their way through householder life and come out the other side finally when the time comes. Otherwise, without training or with a false idea of householder life, we think that we can be happy staying in householder life, and it's not a happy situation to be old and rotting. So if we have that in mind, it may also change my perspective. I may think, why do I want to go through all this trouble to get in when I have to go through all this trouble to get out again? It's not so easy. Not so easy to get out. I wind up with financial responsibilities and these responsibilities and these obligations and these debts to pay and this unfinished business and this unmarried daughter and this and this and this and a pension that's going to kick in 15 years from now. And so we wind up, or we just wind up, what's the word, sort of, it's surrounded by a fog and don't realize how the time is passing and how our life is slipping away and how our energy is being lost just in maintenance of, a little plot of, a little flat with a couple of people in it, when our spiritual master had hoped that we would do something substantial to spread the Krishna consciousness movement, or at least with determination, go back to Godhead, and not just be like attending parent-teacher association meetings and things like that. So when you do the math, when you do your calculations about should I or shouldn't I enter household life, it would be wise to consider that it's only for a short time, or only for 25 years. It's not an ashram to stay in forever. And that can help inform our decision making. Karta Muni agreed to accept the hand of Devahuti, but he told the father, Manu, straight off, I'll stay till there's a child and then I'm going. Even though the child turned out to be the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Karta Muni left home. So that's the duty of the householder at 50 years of age. It said, Pancha Shortam Vanam Prajet. Jade is imperative, one must. And one is advised to get out of householder life, not stay forever. Yes.
And also Grihasthashram seminar, training also is...
Mike?
But maybe you can say. I was just adding that it's very important for this brahmachari training, but also very important for grihastha training, so that they can also, if they enter by...
Important that the grihasthas after brahmachari life be trained? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, in case if they accept grihastha ashram, then they also need to understand, as you are already referring, that not to stay back, but to plan.
Yeah, they should, the grihasthas, of course, everyone should be trained. But there shouldn't be a false training. Sometimes we find that those who are advising grihasthas advise that Prabhupada set up different standards of sexual conduct, that he said sex for purposes other than having children is something Prabhupada approved of, that, well, if you use contraceptives, it's not really so bad. The main thing is that you keep the family together. There's, sorry to say, in the name of grihastha counseling and grihastha guidance, things are said that are not what that are contrary to what Prabhupada taught, and they're sometimes taught as being what Prabhupada taught. And my understanding is that they're not that this is not consistent with Prabhupada taught. I could bring my quote file with me, but it was clear that Prabhupada said that marriage is not a ticket to push button sex whenever you want. Just push the button and enjoy. The enjoyment is illusory. Or there'll be enjoyment, but the enjoyment should be as a, what would you say, a byproduct or an item included in the package of having children, which is the purpose of sex. Prajaya Navratya, in 11th canto, Srimad Bhagavatam. The purpose of sex is not enjoyment. The purpose of sex is having Krishna conscious children. In Dharma Viruddha Bhuteshu Kamosmi, when Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, I'm sex, not contrary to religious principles, Srila Sridhar Swami, Srila Vishwanath, Baladeva Vijayabhushan, and Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, and Srila Prabhupada all comment that sex not contrary to religious principles means sex with one's wife or between husband and wife at the time favorable for conception for the purpose of having a child. That's Dharma avirud, not contrary to Dharma. And the corollary is that sex for that's contrary to that is contrary to religious principles, and Prabhupada said that. So sometimes householder life looks more attractive than it is, because brahmachari life you have to be very strict, you this, that, the other thing. In householder life, you can, you're married, so you can do what you like. But Prabhupada, and so and still be just as good as a brahmachari or sannyasi, because grihete banete daka. Doesn't matter if you're a householder, brahmachari. And so we're given the false picture that you become a householder, it's the same as being a brahmachari, your shot at going back to Godhead is equally good. And these are the regulative principles that you have to follow. At least stay together with your wife. And if you have sex for recreation, with contraceptives or whatever, well, so brahmachari looks at that and says, well, that's a pretty good deal. It's like, brahmachari life, except with free sex thrown in. Now I have to be restrained. If I become a householder, restraint is no longer required. and still my chances of going back to Godhead are equally good. No. That's not what Prabhupada taught. So again, when I'm looking at it and saying which is the more congenial ashram, yes, but am I going to follow the ashram or is it going to be kind of a fudge? I was reading the biography of Indra Prabhu that recently came out. I'm not over time yet, I'm about to be. And when he was a new devotee, brand new practically, he heard what the rules are. That yes, you can get married, but these are the rules. And he said, forget it. I can't, how am I going to do that? So he just looked at it and said, I can't do that. I think the term person who'd explained it to him, or one senior lady had said, it's kind of like going to a feast on a fast day. There's in Prabhupada Lilamrita that Prabhupada was explaining to the ISKCON attorney, actually at 26 Second Avenue, if I remember. He'd asked, the role of sex. And Prabhupada said, yes, only within marriage and only for the purpose of having children, which means only once a month. And Hayagriva Prabhu was there and he said, it's like, well, if those are the rules, better not to get married. If those are the rules, what's the use of getting married? Prabhupada smiled and said, yes. So if we're looking toward this ashram or that ashram, and equally, if you're going to be a brahmachari, then be a brahmachari. And if you're not going to live as a brahmachari, don't make a farce of it. Not that you're going to be wearing saffron and looking for an opportunity to hold hands and smooch it up with such and such brahmacharini when no one is looking. Be an honest man. No use making a farce of the brahmachari ashram. Be an honest householder, and there's nothing wrong with that. But whatever else, so we should follow whatever ashram we're in, and that will give us the best platform. We don't care, grahastha, vanaprastha, sannyasi, brahmachari. We follow strictly, and our real business is Krishna. Prabhupada, someplace else Prabhupada said that sex should become insignificant. No, he's asked, the role of sex in householder life. He said, our goal is to make it insignificant. Not that this is the center of our life. It should become less important to the point of insignificant. How is that? Because Krishna becomes more important. Because we're absorbed in Krishna consciousness. And these other things are not this is not where we go for happiness. Our happiness comes from serving Krishna. And we can serve Krishna as householders, we can have children, there'll be some physical happiness in the process. But our goal is to serve Krishna, not to serve our senses. The service of the senses doesn't lead to happiness. All right. What leads to happiness is serving Krishna's senses. When Krishna's senses are satisfied, then our senses become more than satisfied. And if we try to satisfy our senses, even our own senses will not be satisfied. Tripyanti neha kripana bahudukta vacha. Okay, you said that we should end on a happy note, right?
Can't be more happy than this.
Can't be more happy than this. This is as good as it gets. So should we have some kirtan? Who would like to lead? And it's not, we're in our happy little family here. We don't care if you're a good singer or not. It's not about your beautiful voice. If you'd like to chant and chant Hare Krishna, then we all appreciate it. If you have a nice voice, that's a plus. I don't, so probably won't be worse than me. And who'd like to chant? Yeah? Okay, you're on. Yeah, give, here, you want to take this microphone, or which microphone are we giving? Okay, we have another microphone for you.
Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine
Namo
Namaste Sarasvati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nivishesha Shunyavadi Pasyatya Dishatarine Namaste Sarasvati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Srila Prabhupada. Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo. Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Haribo. Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo. Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo.
Jai Om Vishnuvad Paramansa Paribraj Kacharya Stotra Shri Srimad A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai, Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Sham Kun Radha Kun Giri Govardhan Ki Jai, Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Navadip Dham Ki Jai, Jagannath Puri Ki Jai, Ganga Mai Ki Jai, Ramana Mai Ki Jai, Tulsi Devi Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande. Thank you again for coming. I should mention that little bit about householder restrictions comes to my mind, especially because there's been some posting on WhatsApp or one of those glorious social media, a file of quotations purporting to show how Srila Prabhupada was so very liberal, and I don't think that should go unanswered. So, and on that account especially, speaking to this point. Maybe I don't need to give updates about Kadamba March now because they're being published in any case. So whatever I say, you'll get in your in-basket. Yeah? Yeah, let's see if I should say anything. Yeah, early in the morning, Kadamba Maharaj was quite worn out, and this afternoon he was quite cheery and very, what should we say, with it, and that's all I'm going to say. Yeah, it was a little rough in the morning and cheery in the afternoon.
Where can we find these updates?
They're on the KKS disciple group, right? Somebody who's on the group, you can say how you find them. That's all I know. That they're distributed to the disciple group, and people can pick them up from there. That's all I know. I'm not otherwise involved in the distribution side of it. But the summary is that things are today or as they were yesterday, pretty much. That's the summary. Yeah, I think the postings probably do better justice to the matter than my own comments. So don't expect more updates from me, generally. Right? There's no need. I'm not going to add anything of much importance. If I have something to add, I usually add it to the post before it goes out. Yeah. That's that. Books are still there. Those who may not have a copy of Vanity Karma and would like to take a look, they're available for whatever donation you might like to give. And thank you all for coming. Be sure you get some prasadam. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Maharaj, I gave a copy of your book to a family member, and they really, really, really enjoyed it.
They really enjoyed it?
Yes,
Wow.
particularly how you were referencing